If you could go back to your, let's say, elementary school, middle school, and high school teachers now as an adult, as someone who's either in the university right now or has completed it, as you have, Huda, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them if you could go and be their consultant for a day or a week or a month? What suggestions would you give them particularly to reach out to their Muslim, Arabic-speaking students who are either born here, like you ladies were, or who were born abroad and who are recent immigrants, or who are transnational students coming back and forth from their home country to the United States over a period of time?
One of the biggest things for me is in being in an ESL certification program is to make sure that I understand and recognize that my students are complex and that they come in with, you know, they're not just necessarily bilingual, they could be trilingual, they could be, you know, multilingual.
Yes.
And that they have a very rich sort of depth to their identity, the connection to their identities. And many of them are going through a very sort of complex shift, moving at a young age or even an older age from their home, from what they recognize to something that is not identifiable with their, even, like I said, even on a basic language, communicating to adults or to peers. I think it's just important to note that these students and their families are very complex and that they deserve that recognition.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. If I understand you correctly, maybe you're saying teachers should be aware that students are more than just English language learners learning a new language and content, but they're also going through culture shock potentially, especially if they're...
I mean, they miss their families, they miss their homes, they you know, and I've sat through seminars just listening to teachers share sort of students' presentations of what it's like to move to the States, and many of it is really like full of like the anxieties of how to talk, how to communicate feelings and you know, fear and nervousness. And I keep telling my parents that, you know, they came into this country speaking English, but that it's really those brave ones that are able to move to the States, leaving what they know is familiar, than, you know, like, than many others, you know, that we often think that that immigrants aren't doing enough to exist in this country, but that the ones that are actually here are really coming in with a lot of hope and a lot of bravery. Most
definitely. To leave your family and friends and your whole life.
I mean, how many of us could do that here and like move to a country that doesn't speak the language that we know?
Very difficult. Yeah, thank you. Yes. Would either of you like to speak to that topic? What advice would you give your former teachers about how maybe they could have shown more interest in your cultures and your religion, or given you the opportunity to express, you know, your identity?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to really reemphasize what Farah was saying about the complexity of each student, of each individual in the classroom, and that it's very crucial for educators to be very conscious of not pulling a certain student out and pointing them out as being the example or the representative of the whole. So it always made me, for instance, very uncomfortable whenever teachers would pull me out as being the Arab representative or the Muslim representative. It's something that I think is very intimidating for a lot of students, especially if you are an English language learner. If you're just, you know, readjusting to life in this country, it's already, you know, enough pressure and stress as it is. And so to be put out there almost on a pedestal and being asked to represent an entire people or a culture or a religion or a country is very, very daunting and very anxiety inducing.